Hello, Stan and Elizabeth.
Hello.
Hello, hi.
Why don't you, there you go.
Yeah, see it start video. Yes, yes.
You're coming from different places.
Yeah,
Yes,
Well,
50 minutes away from
okay.
each other.
So how's the COVID?
it's finally.
Better, better. It's apparently, for me, it's almost a week. Tomorrow it's a week, and then by then, yeah, you feel rather, let's say, 100% again. Well, except perhaps for some sore throat.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I feel fine.
Well, hopefully things keep getting better.
Yes. Yes.
So there's something different in the background this time. Something apparently about eyes. Some kind of eyes for whatever meaning or no meaning. So I did receive your email, Stan. A lot of information there. Perhaps that will come up today.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So to start things off, maybe this hasn't been mentioned so much before. To both of you, this message or talking is really not meant to be so much an explanation or an understanding. It's almost a sense of talking to no one about nothing. And as we talked last time, somehow that talking and the question answering and the comments and all that goes on in the meeting is just a kind of arrangement that seems to encourage seeing rather than any kind of deep understanding of anything. So this video, apparently made by a child, I'm not sure how old enough to handle the technology, supposedly, maybe high school age. It just seemed like something that it was, in a sense, saying something about what's being talked about here. It's particularly in terms of eyes seeing something or not. And many of them looking cartoonish or artificial and doing a lot of blinking, which seems to be saying something about seeing. So we talk a lot about seeing, or this talks a lot about seeing. And and changes that seem to happen when at some point there's no longer a seer, when there's no longer someone with a separate life doing the seeing, and that seeing that is without personality or without self sees what it sees the way it sees it, different from what was seen when there was a self. So maybe there can be questions about seeing. If there are any, we can talk about that. Or that can be talked about.
Yeah. Can I maybe perhaps not directly respond to this request of you, but what you say sounds. I thought of a word, transmission. At certain
Transmission?
point. Yes. Do you hear me properly with this mic?
I can. You're heard.
Okay. Yeah. At one point, I thought about the way you gave your introduction. It is very similar to something that Nisargadatta told, and let me add a big disclaimer. When I mention Ramana or Nisargadatta, I always want to credit those people. I never want to claim that I make a certain announcement or I never thought about this. I always want to give credit to the person whom I read this from. So.
Okay.
And he also said at one point to one particular visitor or seeker, I'm not speaking to the person. I'm speaking to he called it then consciousness. And this is a transmission. And I've given you the transmission. I've planted something in you and it will sprout one day, or it will sprout, provided you don't hinder it or whatever he might have added.
Okay.
But so that is something I thought already about this before the meeting, that
Okay.
your way of teaching is, I guess, more like my word is in transmission. And since I'm still, let's say, a seeker, I am always kind of inclined to ask questions in two categories. What can I do, the seeker? And two is, I want to understand your state. But since I had the state myself, but just for a very brief, it's been like minutes in my life in total.
Yes.
It's less than 10 minutes, the three experiences that I had. But of course, since I was only in the wakeful state when I had these experiences, I kind of have, well, sorry if I go this direction, I kind of wonder, what is this? How do you experience sleep? Are you still conscious during deep sleep? Or I get the impression that people are non-stop conscious when they are enlightened, or they are aware of their sleep in another way as well. So maybe this is a way of seeing as well. How do you see your own deep sleep, if I may ask? Is that a silly question? I never got an answer to that, except an impression the people go through a normal state of sleep. The body does everything the same, but somehow I imagine this because I never had my special glimpse during a deep sleep state. Is there something peculiar to deep sleep for you? Has it changed?
It's very restful.
Yeah, but I think you're always restful.
It's at this point, it seems to be on the long side. I know that there are some speakers that say that they don't sleep much, without going into naming different speakers, but that's been heard. And in this case, this body still does a lot of exercise. There's a lot of swimming, hard, exertive lap swimming, and that's been going on for years. It's slowed down a lot, yet there's always been here kind of a longer sleep, which has felt very rejuvenating for the body. After Steve died, the subjects of the dreams seemed to change. For the longest time, dreams here haven't seemed important. The story here, going back 40 years, is there was a lot done to undermine the thoughts, to actually talk to them and tell them basically, you're not me. Well, what the hell are you thinking that you have a life, brain, that sort of thing? That was a form of counseling that was being done for the longest time. So there's for a long time there hasn't been a big attachment to thinking, to dreams, to the mind. This doesn't see that there was a connection to that past and what's happening now. That may or may not be. It doesn't matter. So to answer your question further, here, there's just it seems to be a different subject, a very different subject to the dreaming after Steve left. And a continued lack of attachment, or a lack of importance, a lack of attention to the dreams. The biggest thing I would say, though, is just a different, if there's a dream, it's just a different subject, maybe having to do with things that have changed recently here.
And
It's
does it, yeah.
still deep, restful sleep. Calm sleep, generally calm, peaceful dreams. And again, this has only been so long, this change. And as it's been said, things continue changing.
We read, I guess we did this together, Lisbeth. I guess yesterday or the day before, we read into your homepage.
Oh,
And yeah, and
you mean homeopathy?
Yes, I believe it's
Okay.
that one, where at least there was some explanation, and we read a part of the Live Now counseling.
Yeah, yes.
And it was when I read the portion where it said it's kind of like treating or telling the patient that the problem is not the patient, the problem is the thoughts.
Yes.
And you already mentioned to us that you did this for 40 years in the previous video. And then I thought to myself, but whoa, but this is kind of only what I found out after my glimpse. And Nisargadatta or Ramana kind of instructed me in this way: ignore the thoughts. I've only been doing this, let's say, for the last 2 years, bit by bit, and not of course in all circumstances. So I see this as this is by a lot of other teachers that I read into. It's been given as a practice, as a spiritual practice.
Okay.
To me, yeah, this is my interpretation, of course, and but I understand perfectly whatever the practice was. As soon as you shift into oneness,
yes,
the relationship is completely. I understand. I had this as well. Like, oh, so I never did anything in my life to achieve this. All the searching that I did in my own personal way, which was, you could better call it scientifically seeking and so on. There's never a spiritual process before I had my I believe so. And then I found out, oh, this is what I had to look for myself. And now I know it was like nothing was really preparing me for this knowledge.
yes.
That was, so I understand, but it is, the Live Now counseling sounds really like what Nisargadatta or Ramana Maharshi or so many others would say, I guess, of how to look at life. Just ignore thoughts or see them as experiences, or that's my word for it. They just come and go. There's no need to really cling to them. Enjoy them if you want. And yeah, but we'll all see, we'll not enjoy all the thoughts or all the circumstances. So
Yes.
yeah.
Now it's seen that the thoughts are just another thing that's happening. In the Live Now period, the Live Now epoch, there was even as the thoughts were totally unsupported, unembraced, unaccepted, there was still a me. There was still Steve doing it. There was still a Steve. So that's where Live Now drops out of the picture here. It doesn't Live Now doesn't remove or still has a Steve. Whereas, and things were seen the way they were seen then, as a Steve. Now that there's no Steve, it's radically different than it was even Steve doing Live Now for 40 years. There was a similarity in a way, yet radically different, and there's really no place for Live Now. Now, it's not necessary. It doesn't go where this message seems to go. There's still with Live Now, there was still a small, actually reasonably sized Steve. So that's the story with that one. And it's not being practiced. There are some people that have worked with Steve doing it, and yet there are no new interested people calling, and Live Now itself was a difficult practice. It was a practice, and it was a difficult practice for people to accept.
Mhm.
Even perhaps more difficult than non-duality, because the personality is created by thought, embraced by thought.
Mm.
It's very much thought.
Mhm.
And if, it's hard for that personality to accept the fact that it's not who it thinks it is.
Mhm.
And in this case, it has difficulty accepting that it's not even there to start with. It never was there.
But I'd like to ask, let's say, and stick to one question. So
Yeah.
you're of the opinion then, and your way of teaching is not to give a practice.
It's
You're-
not, no, this is not a practice.
Mhm.
Again, with practice is somebody who's practicing.
Yeah.
There's somebody who's doing the practicing. So this is not termed a practice or an undertaking, endeavor, a knowing, not an awareness, not a consciousness, not a meditation, not anything that has the slightest bit of self involved.
Mm.
That slight bit of self is basically might be seen as a wall, a high wall
Mm.
that's as small as that self may seem, the wall is huge
Mm.
until it's not there.
Did Tony Parson, I believe it was, that you talked to in the retreats, did he
No,
Ah,
that
sorry.
was Emerson.
Sorry, did he
Emerson.
sorry, did he approach it in the same way as you do it now, or
He has every speaker has their own way of talking. Hopefully all the talking is pretty much similar. However, it's all coming from oneness or wholeness. The two retreats and all the speakers that have been listened to here, all many speakers have been listened to that are actively talking this message. And the words, basically the words were not remembered. The words don't get remembered. And the retreats were a blur. Only a little bit is remembered of what was said. So it's not here anyway, it's not a matter of memorizing the words.
Mhm.
It's just once Steve was gone, seeing was doing the seeing, and the words were coming from the seeing. And so each speaker is doing that same thing. And that's where the differences come up, apparently, in the way that the message is being talked. Generally, though, the message seems to be the same. And if it's all coming from nothing, then whatever's said should be more nothing. Nothing speaking,
Mhm.
nothing hearing. So, it all seems to be an energetic activity or an energetic movement that may lead to an energetic change, maybe using words like frequency or vibration or whatever, energetically, in such a way that the identity, the separate identity, so closely held and in a sense worshipped, the identity worships itself, the self is being worshipped by itself so tightly and so adoringly, and yet in some cases horrendously, changes the energy in whatever way, in its way, beyond scientific explanation, changes its energy. And in that change, the person is no longer there. That's what all this talking is pointing to, is illuminating, is seeing.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, during what you said in the last 30 seconds made me think of the word which I've come across from these other teachers. Be passionately dispassionate.
Okay.
And I was wondering, again, I go back to the process, of course, and I was wondering by the time or earlier in your life of Steve, do you recognize you already developed a lot of this passion for, I think the Live Now stuff seems to be about this passion. If you ignore, or let's say treat thoughts according to the Live Now paradigm, it might have been a very dispassionate look at thoughts, and but then I think, is there maybe also some, if I look at my own process, I just had a very strong will to know.
Uh-huh.
And it reached the point, the end of 2017, it reached the point of where I concluded, I will never know anything fundamentally in this life. And I looked at physics, because I had a bit of a physics background.
Uh-huh.
But I said to myself, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how many time you have. Science will never, with the logic of cause and effect, they will keep on looking for causes. Any cause needs a new, earlier cause to explain the consequence. But let's say we find it's atoms, it's the smallest. No, then it becomes protons and electrons, and then it becomes quarks, and it will just continue on like that. Or you can take the Big Bang. But what they say, physicists tell, the Big Bang caused our current natural laws.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, then the question rises immediately. But what caused the Big Bang? That could also become a physics one day.
Yes.
But if we then solve that question, it becomes the question is just, it's like an horizon. They just keep continuing. It's endless. So I reached this point of frustration, and I also then thought to myself, okay, if I can never reach, if I get, I cannot rid myself of this conclusion. Science will never know anything at the root or at the bottom of things. But then I thought, okay, let me just try to be happy in this life. Then I had a good look at that as well. And I said, yeah, I'm going to maybe tell it a little bit ugly. I was like, what are people fooling each other with, themselves or each other with, that they'll be happy with this or with that? I've tried enough in my life. I don't seem to be able to remain happy with anything. Even if I like something for a particular amount of time, I lose interest.
Uh-huh.
It's with people, it's with things, it's with hobbies, it's with everything. I tried everything, even altruism or philanthropy. I thought about all possible scenarios that a person could deem its life worthy. But to me, it was like, I cannot tell that life will ever make me happy, and everybody else who thinks so is just lying to themselves. I reached that point, and then I came across psychedelics, and then I came across nice stories of people. So I gave that a try. After a year and a half, 1.5 years of doing that quite intensively, I had a very big experience with 5-MeO DMT. It was like, a God experience. Let me call it just briefly that. But I have to say, by the time I did I was planning on doing the 5-MeO DMT. In an impulse. I did ayahuasca 20 times, and it was fun, and there were some insights, but there was never a real satisfaction. And then somebody proposed me to do 5-MeO DMT, and then I did it, but there was hardly any information on YouTube or on the internet about it. So I got a little bit scared, and that's an understatement. But by then, I had 1.5 months to prepare for that, because I just planned the session. And then I was like, oh shit, I cannot find that much. But then I went into a period of, let's say, 1.5 months of, I am willing to die, and I mean this, I am willing to die to know the truth. I'll either die because of this 5-MeO. It might have been too much for my body, I'll die that way, but at least dying will give me an answer, even if there's nothing. I was so fed up that I just went along. But in that period, I also experienced, before the 5-MeO still, I also experienced episodes at night when I was back from work. I was so peaceful, unimaginably peaceful, with the foresight of going to die or knowing it. The 5-MeO then came. It was a big experience, very frightening. I have no words for it. Very frightening. Let me briefly say what happened. So the most important part of this session was, I felt like I was in a state of a wakeful sleep, a wakeful deep sleep, no expression whatsoever, total pitch blackness, nothing. But there was awareness, and all of a sudden, out of this deep sleep awareness came the thought, I am, which means I exist. And it was a very, very big shock because of the psychedelics, which is so strong. You go, I don't know why it makes it so strong. Such an insight, I am or I exist, was like a shock beyond belief. But the second thought that arose was, oh, but if I exist, then God must exist. And I was perplexed again by that. But then came the real kicker that made me go completely berserk, completely nuts, because the thought came, so I and God is then exactly the same. And then a roar, a sound came through my body, or came through my being, because I don't have a body. In that kind of a psychedelic state, there's no idea of the world. It's just, okay, I'm just a little bit of consciousness. That's all that I am.
Uh-huh.
And so after that 5-MeO, I didn't know what happened. I just knew I was afraid. Then the next day, the thoughts came, or the memory came, what happened. And that experience kept me away from doing psychedelics ever again.
Uh-huh.
Because I thought to myself, what else is there to know? I and God, or I am God, is the insight that I got. And of course, this is not having a God complex. I know it's the case for everybody. So this kept me away from doing any more psychedelics. But then a strange fear, and it's a very strong fear, came back into my life in those 6 months, or 3 to 6 months after the 5-MeO DMT. Then we are at the end of 2019, where I got my first highway experience, or my second experience ever, non-dual, but on the highway. But the fear that struck me then, in the weeks leading up to the end of 2019, was, one day I'll know everything. And why did it struck such a fear in me? Because I thought this would mean eternal boredom, there's nothing more to discover, eternal boredom. And I've had this experience earlier in my life as well. I cannot recall when, but it's been a familiar fear. And that's happened. And then one day I got in my car, I got on the highway, I looked in my left mirror, just paying attention to the traffic behind me. I looked back forward, poof, everything was changed. So if I may add a little bit of detail that is perhaps interesting to certain people who might hear this, it's like within 2 seconds, you shift into a whole new state where if I use your words, your seeing is completely changed. Did you also feel like it was like happening in 1-2 seconds and then woof, it's like, huh? It's been always like that for me. I without noticing, I've switched into another state.
Well, here, there is no time. There's no real,
But the
there's
switch,
no real seeing of movement as far as like a progress or a regress or anything like that. It's just every time something is seen, every time that there's seeing, it seems, even though it's the neighbor across the street, it's new every time, every look, every glimpse, or well, not glimpse, but every moment of seeing something that's always been there, apparently. It's always been there, yet it's new.
Yeah.
It's
because
there's no longer a sense of a history of, you know, of this living in a ordered, predictable, or at least known kind of environment. What is seen as what's there, as what is, and it's not a sense of an ordered life. Steve always had a desire for an ordered life, or at least a life that Steve enjoyed and was Steve's life. And in that sense, it was all Steve. And now there's none of that recognition. It's all life, and Steve is out of the picture. Life is the picture. Life. There's been some rain here, so the sky is full of clouds. The ocean's not visible, but there's a bit of a horizon from this chair. If the artificial eyes are removed, then what can be seen is a large vista overlooking a part of San Diego that's always there. Now it's there, and it's each moment of, or each seeing, or all the seeing is new, even though it's totally recognizable. Nothing has really changed position. You know, the neighborhood doesn't move the houses around. They stay where they are. And yet, every seeing is new. Oh, there's a bird on the wire that just flew up there. That is totally different from when Steve was living Steve. And
but you don't remember, you don't recall, let's say in the last retreat, the shift whereby you didn't, or let's say you had a shift of one day, you were disappearing for one day and 4 days. I'm looking at this technically, yeah, but I cannot even tell it myself, that I can only say that it goes really quick, that you shift from the me personality into open this open state. It's and I lost always my body consciousness. It just went away. It just went completely away. But that's the temporary. That's why it's a temporary state, I believe. What I had. The
Well,
body.
The glimpses again were just, they're called a glimpse because it's like a short kind of superficial, almost superficial seeing. The glimpses would just Steve would be there and then he wouldn't. And there wouldn't be a transition between Steve and the glimpse. It would just be Steve and then no Steve. No time frame. If anything, it would seem like an immediate change. And toward the end, the story goes, again, this is all a story. This Steve story. There were glimpses all along until there were no more glimpses. And it's hard to say what the last glimpse might have been. Again, a lot of that is not remembered. But up to the end, something was happening near the end. Another effort for Steve to kind of another failed effort for Steve to kind of control the glimpses. Maybe that was, and now it's not even remembered what the subject of that effort was, but it was those efforts were something like Steve attempting to have a glimpse, or Steve attempting to be gone permanently, because all along Steve was there thinking it was doing the retreats, and until it just wasn't there. And there was, again, like was said, there seemed to be a kind of weakening of the attention near the end. So it's from here, there just is, there's no need for that apparently for that memory, or for that even to be expressed. It's over. I mean, there's no need. There's no desire. There's nothing is missing. Nothing missing. Nothing needs to be changed. Nothing. There's no lack. There's no sense of lack. There's if anything, there's a sense of everything, a sense of bounty, a sense of completeness. It's just a description of what is. This is what is. This is just what is.
Yeah,
Nothing.
I remember. Yeah, I do remember the desirelessness, because there was nothing to desire. There was everything. To put it in my words, if I am one with everything, what is there to desire? It kind of went like that in my head in my kitchen experience. Is this kitchen, by the way?
Okay.
I was standing 2-3 meters over there.
The
when it
famous
happened.
kitchen.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
so what does Lisbeth have to say about this conversation?
Hmm.
Be
If-
honest.
If she wishes.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a peaceful day here,
Oh, good.
a quiet day.
Okay. Well,
But I'm curious about, or I'm intrigued what you were saying about, yeah, energy. Is it like, I don't know if it's if it's a concept or is it like a vibrant seeing, like yeah, seeing everything as energy.
well, what's seen is basically the different forms that energy seems to take.
Mhm.
A plant, a plant on the table, the table itself, a couch, walls, and then outdoors, all the landscape, the clouds, the air, the sense of energy in the atmosphere.
Mhm.
We were talking last time about plasma and defining what energy might be. Plasma doesn't exist everywhere in that form. It's actually very dangerous to life, to living beings. It can be hugely dangerous because it's so hot, for one. And we were talking in terms of plasma being somehow too hot for particles to exist in some cases. So that would be maybe a certain kind of plasma would be an energy of some kind that had little form except this kind of gaseous, possibly dense gaseous nature. But these are just efforts of describing something, again, indescribable. When you look at the forms, well, even the body, the body is a form of life chemistry, apparently. Energy taking the form of life chemistry that takes the form of living humans, living bodies. So that energy is energy, just as a table would be energy, just a different form. A table isn't considered life scientifically. It's not considered to have a biochemical complexity that would lead to what science might call life. This does. Those bodies there do. And yet it's energy. It's biochemical molecules made up of atoms, rather than a table. Well, table would be a form of carbohydrate probably, which at some point was made by a tree, a living tree. So yet the table's not considered living once it's made. So energy is again nameless, undescribable, indescribable, unexplainable. Just like basically everything that is and isn't, infinitely. And it's, in a sense, it's that indescribable aspect. I better get a drink here. It's only really seen when the describer is not there, when the knower is not there. Everything is there indescribably. And it doesn't matter that there's not a description or an explanation. It's not needed. It's it's just not needed. That's different. Totally different. And there's no loss. There's no loss for not having an explanation for it. It's and the thing is, it's always been that way, and it will always be that way forever. Never began, never will end. And will never be seen by the seeker, by the knower, by the self. Even a teeny little self, after years of seeking, reaching this totally unique place, in whatever way it's unique, will never see it. Just a little dab of self. We'll never see it until that dab is no longer there. And that's what this talking is. This talking is about that self, big or little, no longer being there. And then there are no questions, no longer questions. The speakers that that have recently died are not asking questions when they're speaking. They're no longer asking questions. During the meetings, there are questions. There's something that needs to be understood. There's something that doesn't feel right. There's something that is disturbing, or something that's uncomfortable, or all this comes up during the meetings when the identities are there. And once they're not there, none of that questionable stuff is there. There's no need to ask questions. Unless it's something like asking directions, you know, if you're going someplace unfamiliar, well, how do I get to this? Do I make a right turn? Or you're looking at them, you know, looking at your satellite map and it's telling you how to go somewhere on your phone. That, you know, that's just getting around. That's just life getting around life. But there's no worry. There's no fear. There's no more questions. Basically, no more big questions.
This particular section, this dynamic between us now, it reminds me of, I believe, the way Nisargadatta's guru, Siddha Rameshwar, talked to him, or there was at least a portion of their talks which went the following. The guru would speak, and after he had spoken, he said to the student, which was Nisargadatta, now be quiet. No questions, just be quiet. And Ramana Maharshi tells, be still. And then there's a second sentence, be still means destroy yourself.
Wow. Well, there's no guru here.
Yeah,
there's no guru here.
Yeah.
And there is a need for another drink, though.
Yeah.
And and there's just this talk. It's just this kind of talk. That's all. And here there's not really a there's not really suggestions so much. It's left up to what is. This is just what is, leaving things up to what is, leaving things somehow open to what is, doing what is. There's a giving directions is another way of knowing, of encouraging the knower. There are no directions here. There's no directions needed. You don't have to read a page of directions for this. Directions would be supporting the directed. There's no advice outside of what's been said about some kind of environment or some kind of like a group or where energy seems to flow, where wholeness seems to be, seems to That's where this change seems to happen. Maybe more, maybe not. It's,
This can also be in nature.
pardon me?
That can also be in nature.
Yes. It can happen anywhere, anytime. Looking at a tree, looking at a bee.
Because that's something that resonates here.
Okay. Well, that's part of the story here too. Nature is wholeness. Nature is what is. And nature is now wonderfully comfortable. It's attractive. It feels, it's seen to be a nice place to be,
Mhm.
a nice form of seeing. In the story of this, again, nature was a place that seemed to encourage glimpses. Looking at a tree and looking at a different tree and something changing in the looking, then that's part of the stories, or the story of this, along with here, there seemed to be a need for Steve to do the retreats. Once the retreats were started, Steve just stayed with it, and things kept happening. It may be for others, just that a walk in nature will be a way for the person to leave, for the person to no longer be, or maybe not. It's something that the you may feel it has something to do with, but has absolutely nothing, because it's not there to start with. So the you will do what it feels is helpful for it in its journey to the end of some kind. And once it's gone, it's seen that it's whatever it was that happened, the change, whatever kind of change it was, that the you is no longer there, happened the way it happened, and you had nothing to do with it. Even if the you says, well, it got smaller and smaller and stopped trying and seemed to give up, and that's its story. That's just a story. It's just you's story. It whatever happened just did. That's the energy of it.
I recall, so let's say when I found Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta, I found, my ego found a technique or a spiritual practice. I've been doing it, let's say, that's been my path, my process. But I do notice that months already ago, I didn't meditate anymore like I did in the beginning for months. So I sometimes do get the impression, but I've been also, let's say, via the same people, I've been told that meditation is gonna, let's say, start, but it's gonna diminish and it's gonna go away, because they also say everything needs to go. Even the instructions of the teacher or the knowledge of the teacher or your practice, it all has to go. And I see, since my ego is, let's say, late in life, become interested in meditation, the meditation has to, at least that one has to exhaust, and maybe some other stuff as well, that I'm not yet aware of, that my ego thinks it needs to do to get removed. Yeah, it's but yeah, I think there is a shedding away, at least in my case, for my practice. But talking to you is first of all, it's my first kind of talk ever with somebody who's really really into this, and the rest is all from books. But it's really, yeah, it's not, of course, that easy to keep on talking to you, because you put forward your always the same view.
Yes.
And I understand where the view is coming from, but it's always as an ego, as a person. It's like it either has questions about your state, or it has questions about how to reach the state. And even it's just so silly. Even if you tell it there's nothing to do, it just won't.
Yes.
Accept that. It's just, it really thinks I can, there's still some effort to do, or there's still something to do that is beneficial or helpful. I even still think like that.
Yes, this did similar things. Steve did similar things before he was gone. He never meditated that much until the very end, when he was experimenting with Ramana and Nisargadatta. And then once he ran into this other message, all that stopped. And it wasn't from anything that was told, or it was just a sense here. Steve had a sense that that there was no longer a need somehow for meditation, for self-inquiry, and went in a different way, went more into the message that's being talked here. So this message keeps repeating, and the more it's heard, the more the repetition can be seen, and there are efforts made to use different words, but it ends up being repetitive. And there's really not a big effort made to expand the message more. Even the repetition of the message seems to be part of the environment that that energy will resonate with.
Yeah, I in my personal case, I listen far less to non-dual videos than before. And to be honest, I don't have a glass ball, but nowadays, the last few weeks, not listening to Nisargadatta, not listening to Ramana Maharshi, other people. I just keep to the dead people. Otherwise, maybe some people will be a bit annoyed. But I do listen to you. I can easily watch a video that you speak about, and I'll be busy with certain things. I might be doing something in the kitchen or whatever. But I find it then. Because I still have sometimes a question here or there about how do you experience, for instance, I had the question, how do you experience deep sleep? But this is just I know it's silly curiosity of my ego. It's and I know it won't help me either. But nevertheless, there is this bit of an urge, desire to ask knowledge questions about your state, because my time in it was very limited and not, let's say, maybe as pure as your state now. So I find it's more difficult to participate, or I can participate and be quiet. That's fine for me, but I don't really know much how to participate, because my questions are really either what could work for me as a practice, I keep on asking for a practice, or maybe a few bits and pieces about how do you experience life as a general other way of
Yes, that is Stan looking for answers, and there aren't any. There aren't any answers for Stan. There aren't any answers for Lisbeth. There just aren't any answers. Any answers would just go encourage more Stan and more Lisbeth. There are there's really, in a sense, nothing to be said. The energy of everything will do what it does, or it won't. The energy of everything does what it does. And at some point, there's no more need for talking, because talking goes nowhere. talking goes as far as talking goes, and then it's up to energy. It's up to infinity.
Can I ask? Let's
Mhm.
say Lisbeth and I, or one of the two of us, we die, and let me use the word unenlightened. We die without knowing the oneness or experiencing it.
You mean you have a physical death of the
Death.
body?
Yes, yeah, indeed, a physical death
Of the body.
of the body, and we never were enlightened, or we will never reach your state. What will happen? Do you know, or do you have a fresh look on this, or?
There is a seeing about what is said commonly, that there's no death and no birth.
Mm.
That the body will do what it does, but wholeness, but what is still what is. And there's no,
Mm.
as long as it's all what is, there's no one concerned even about life or death. It's just all, in a sense, it's all perfect. It's all perfect in the way of what is. The body will do what it does for all animal forms of life. It's just, some lives are longer than others. Some bodies are bigger than others. Some bodies are smarter than others. And apparently part of human difficulty is the smartness, right? The ability of the human mind or the human brain to get lost in itself. Science might, or evolution might, describe that in its way as being part of a survival ability of some kind. There's just no need for an answer really about life and death, unless there's a person that thinks it's going to be, that thinks it's alive, and that thinks it has a life that might end. Then that person, that separate person, would have a concern. But life has no concern at all. The worst things can happen, you know, when it's talked about climate change, the worst things could happen to the earth. There have been huge dramatic changes in life losing changes to the earth, apparently in its apparent history. And it goes on, it keeps orbiting the sun. It doesn't care. If there's no atmosphere here to support life, it could care less. At some point, the atmosphere might return in life's way. But in the meantime, if all life is gone, all plant life, all animal life, no longer clouds in the sky, the oxygen leaves the atmosphere, like Mars, 1% oxygen, then Mars doesn't care, it only has 1% oxygen. The universe doesn't care that Mars has only 1%. The incredible diversity of stars and planets in the universe is just the way it apparently is, and perhaps more Earth-type planets will be discovered at some point, but so far, nothing quite like the Earth has been seen by science, as far as this has seen. It's just from the standpoint of Steve, it's inconceivable. It was inconceivable that anything would be different from what Steve experienced until Steve wasn't there. And now what's seen would have been totally inconceivable by Steve, and it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter that it cannot be conceived. There's just no need for conception anymore. And conception in the terms of explanation. So what?
Can I, it's still related, this question. So you never feel a part of oneness. You always feel oneness. That's what you experience. Because let me ask you why I asked the earlier question. So I felt the oneness. I felt everything is exactly the same. But this may be my memory. If I go back to my experience, then I judge it as, yes, there is oneness, it's one reality, but I felt like I'm a part in it. I'm at the local place. It doesn't matter. I don't need to go to the other end of the universe. It was really like that for me. I don't have to go to the other end of the universe. It's all the same. It's all one thing.
Yes.
But if I use that knowledge, I kind of wonder my earlier question. So what if this part of reality, I am a part of reality, dies, this body dies. I know there's no risk. It's like the wave crashing. This wave is gone, but
Yes.
all the essence of reality, the essence of oneness, is all still there. But does it become another body with a totally different personality, with no relation to Stijn, and it's from that kind of ignorance that I asked the question. And now to the new question again: do you ever feel a part of oneness, or do you always just like, no, it's just oneness for me, I'm not even a part of it?
There's no separation. So being a part of it would be a form of separation. So there's not even a question about about being a body. There is a body. They're like no different. So that things are not so much divided up into parts.
Yeah.
Hands and feet and whatnot. That's recognized, that's seen, there are hands and there are feet. They do what they do. The body does what it does. And in a sense, there's not even someone looking at the body. There's just seeing. There's just, again, the words don't work, but it's just seen that everything is the way that it is with an apparent quality.
I had the strangest thoughts when I was a child. Oh, how old? I think I was around 9 years old, and I looked at I really looked then at the question, what am I or who am I? But I think it started earlier with a desire as a child to be somebody else. And I thought of, let's say, a guy at my school. I just wanted to be him. And I was so convinced as a child that I should be able to be somebody else. And it meant I would have his body, I would have his mind, I would have his whole, I would live with his parents and so on. I was just convinced about it. And I was looking for a way to achieve it. But I couldn't, of course. But I've came across something about the guru from Nisargadatta, about siddhis, spiritual powers, if I can translate it like that.
Okay.
And he talked about the fact that an enlightened person, he or she might, it's not a necessity whatsoever, it's all just a part of the play as well. If an enlightened person has a particular spiritual gift, he might have the power to enter another person, to really know what's going on, and do other stuff as well, even completely influence them. But so it's like, it's related to the earlier question about what happens if I die, and it's like, life just lives another body, another story. But to life, it's the person doesn't matter. Life is indestructible, and it's
well, what's seen when you die is that there are no longer any questions at all.
I even had this for a brief moment during my glimpse. No questions. It was like, okay, this is clear.
Yes.
So it's, I'm a peculiar case that I still ask questions, but.
Well, the you will do whatever it's kind of programmed to do by its thoughts until it doesn't and it isn't.
Yeah, I know. But
So Lisbeth, you're smiling. It's good to smile, huh?
Yeah, it's good to smile.
So what is nature alike in Belgium? What is nature like in your neighborhood?
Well, I have here in the back, I have a little private forest, so that's nice.
Oh,
It's not big, but it's yeah, I like it a lot. And yeah, well, I or Stein doesn't either. We don't live in a really big city.
oh,
So nature is yeah, is close by.
okay.
But we
And
don't really have any mountains here or an ocean. There's a North Sea.
Okay.
But yeah.
So what happens, what happens when you go to the woods by your house?
Well, there's always a calmness coming over me.
Yes.
And I did maybe like practice this somehow, but now it's not, or it doesn't feel like a practice all the time. There's like a resonating with the energy of the trees.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And yeah, sometimes it's a trying, sometimes it's an imagining.
Okay.
And it does sometimes give a feel of bounteousness.
Okay.
And for me, earlier today we went on a walk together, and we were it was yeah, in a really nature environment, and there was a river, and yeah, I guess very few people, very few houses or buildings, and I guess that's what does the trick does the trick for me in this case. Yeah.
Well, it's great that that can be so close to home.
Yeah, that is.
So I'm getting some information here that I need to stop the meeting. Are there any other questions?
no, not no.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, this has made an effort to see if other people would be interested in coming without too much success, as you can see. So if you happen to know others that might be interested, they'd certainly be welcome. This would like to keep giving these meetings, no matter how many show up. If you're interested, if you also are interested, we can keep having these meetings. And Stan or Stein?
Yeah.
Is Stein actually close?
Stan is really close. Stan is already really close.
Okay. We certainly can do a one-on-one if you're interested, and Lisbeth also. If that comes up for you, just let me know. As it looks now, at least for the time being, 2 of these meetings a week seems to work here. Okay. So I'll keep you both informed.
But yeah.
You have another question? That's fine.
Yeah, it's like I told earlier. It's hard for me. I know my type of questions, and I've shown how what my interest as an ego is. I wished also that other people would join.
Yes.
That I wouldn't have to ask my kind of questions. That I could just be a listener.
Yes.
So I do have the impression that
Yes.
people watch the videos, the last two and also earlier, but let's say the last two or with Lisbeth and I am in. So yeah, I would encourage people to just join, because yeah, I can continue with my silliness. But yeah,
What's been done so far is there have been comments about the meetings, and there's a notice about the meetings in the information area of the videos, and there haven't been many responses. This actually all started with an email from Kim. Are you friends with Kim?
no,
You don't know Kim? Okay.
no.
Yeah, she sent me an email and asked if I wouldn't start doing meetings, and that's how it started. So she wasn't able to come to the first meeting and was asked to come to others. So there'll be another email to her to see if she knows more people that might be interested. There was another fellow I was doing this was doing one-on-ones with that didn't seem to enjoy being recorded. That may be a hesitation for some people. So from here, the meetings definitely will continue, and perhaps we'll have more visitors.
Yeah, and let me say, I liked the videos where you just talked. That's easy for me. Then I don't really have to participate with questions to which I know the answer, or I know the silliness about, or
So you would prefer more just non-duality videos without meetings?
yeah, but I could also watch videos where other people would talk with you,
Yes. Okay.
but for me it's a bit like, okay, at one point I just have to stop being in a video, because I just keep on asking the same type of questions.
Well, maybe at some point there won't be questions.
Yeah, I hope this would magically occur for me.
The other
why
thing, the other thing is that at one point there was an experiment with streaming. There were two videos, I guess, two videos that were streamed. One was the penguin and one was raindrops. And that was unusual because there's no talking between people. It's just talking here and then chatting. And so that didn't, at this point, that hasn't gone very far, because it's hard to talk that way. It's hard to talk if the guest or the visitor is not able to talk. Any feedback on that one?
Yeah, I remember the penguin video, and I thought there was a Lisa. You mentioned her name quite often, and I was indeed wondering, do I hear her or not? I even tried.
Yes.
But yeah, I was thinking, but okay, it's sometimes if you then read something, but okay, afterwards, if you just look at a streaming video afterwards, you don't see what somebody typed. So I didn't know what you reacted to when Lisa said something.
Right.
Yeah, that's maybe a drawback just from watching the video afterwards if you
Right.
really want to hear everything, but you can still hear what you're saying. So
Right.
that's still beneficial. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's a story of Ramana Maharshi is the guy didn't speak for 11 years. So how hard would that have been to sit
Yeah.
around him or be with him?
Yeah.
So, and you're, yeah, and I understand this. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not I'm not a talkative guy. That's not really true. But I cannot continue asking questions to keep this
Forever.
going for 10 more video sessions, you know. That's
You might lose your voice.
yeah. Well, that'll be fine, but yeah, I wish some people would just make the jump. I did this also with a little bit of hesitation, fear it means,
Yes.
but it's fine.
Well, how about this?
Yeah,
We'll just post this video and maybe the conversation about more people will sink in.
yeah, yes. That's why I wanted to say it also. Just come and join, and
Yes.
yeah,
Everybody's welcome.
yeah.
Okay, well, I'll
Okay.
say, or this is adios. Until the next time.
This
Yes.
is goeiedag.
Okay.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
See
Yeah.
you later.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye bye.